You are not watching this story. You are in it. At the end of each video, two choices will appear. Your decision determines what happens next. There is no going back. The stairs did not end. They continued downward through a space that had no right to exist beneath a single-story house. Through geological layers that Elena recognized from school textbooks, limestone, shale, granite, and through layers that had no names, that had colors visible only in peripheral vision, that had textures that changed when touched, becoming first rough, then smooth, and neither, then both simultaneously. She counted the steps. At 300, she stopped. The number felt wrong, felt like an accusation, like a name she had been called in a language she did not speak. The darkness was complete now, her candle long extinguished by the pressure of descent, yet she could see. Not with her eyes. With her skin, with the hairs on her arms, with the sensitive membranes inside her nostrils and ears that detected not light, but the absence of obstruction. The shape of space defined by what did not fill it. The stairs ended at a chamber. The dimensions were impossible to estimate. The ceiling was close enough to touch, yet when Elena reached upward, her hand found nothing. Continued rising, seemed to extend beyond the length of her arm without detaching from her shoulder. The floor was solid, rough, covered with a substance that crunched softly underfoot and released the smell of autumn, of harvest, of the particular sweetness that comes from vegetation in the process of decay. She understood what she walked on. Not leaves, not soil. Photographs, not thousands of them. Millions, layered and compressed, and fused into a carpet of images that extended in all directions. Faces, the same face. Vera's face. But not only Vera. Other women with similar bone structure, similar posture, similar expressions of resigned determination. The bloodline. The membrane keepers. The ones who had descended and returned, or descended and not returned. Their images captured somehow and added to this archive. This record of maintenance and sacrifice. In the center of the chamber stood a structure, not built, grown. A root system of enormous scale, extending upward through the impossible ceiling, downward through the floor that was not floor, outward in tangled profusion that suggested not plant growth, but neural tissue, but vascular systems, but the branching patterns of lungs and glands and the electrical pathways of brains. The root was alive. Elena felt its pulse through her feet, a rhythm that did not match her heartbeat, but that her heartbeat began to accommodate, to synchronize with, to follow. The root was aware, not conscious in any human sense, but aware in the way a wound is aware of infection, the way a body is aware of foreign tissue. It knew she was there. It was studying her. She approached. The root's surface was not bark. It was smoother, more like skin, with a temperature that matched her own, that seemed to adjust as she drew closer, becoming warmer when she felt cold, cooler when her palms began to sweat. There were patterns on the surface, not natural, inscribed, carved with tools that had left marks too precise for stone, too permanent for organic matter. The marks were names. Her name, Vera's name. Names going back through centuries, through millennia, through durations that did not correspond to human history, to human existence, to the geological record. The root had been here before the mountains formed. It had grown through the supercontinent, through the volcanic upwelling, through the sedimentation and erosion and orogeny that had shaped this landscape. It had waited. It had maintained its own membrane, its own boundary between what it was and what the world around it became. And it had needed keepers, not worshippers, not servants, something more intimate, something that required the bloodline to become part of its system, to function as antibodies function, as white blood cells function, recognizing intrusion, responding to threat, maintaining the integrity of the organism. against the pressure of what pressed against it. From outside, Elena touched her name. The root responded. A section of surface near her fingers softened, became pliant, opened like a pore, like a wound, like an invitation. Inside was darkness that had texture, that had warmth, that had the moist elasticity of internal spaces. The root was offering incorporation, not death. Something else. Something that had no name, because the only ones who knew it were part of it, were no longer capable of language, of separation, of the individual perspective that naming required. She understood what had happened to Vera, not death, not disappearance, expansion. The woman in the photographs, young then old then young again, had not been a single individual aging and rejuvenating. She had been a sequence of incorporations, each one adding to the root, becoming part of its awareness, its defense, its ancient and patient vigilance. The Vera who wrote the journal was not the Vera who descended, not the Vera who touched the root, not the Vera who became, finally, fully, part of the membrane she had maintained. The offer was clear. Elena could join, could add her name to the others, her consciousness to the distributed awareness that guarded this place. That kept the hollow ones at bay, not through force, but through presence. Through the simple fact of occupied territory, of claimed space, of a boundary that was walked and watched and inhabited. Or she could refuse, could climb the stairs that might not exist in the upward direction, could return to the house and try to find another way, to become the membrane through ritual rather than incorporation, through the tools and practices that Vera had used that had ultimately failed her, that had led her here to this chamber and this choice. The root pulsed, waiting. It had waited before. It would wait again. Time did not pass for it in the way it passed for her. The offer would remain, would remain, would remain, until she accepted, or until she found another path, or until she died, and her body was added to the photographs, to the carpet of images, to the record of those who had come and seen and chosen otherwise. Elena felt the weight of the bloodline, not obligation, physics, the gravity of inheritance, of genetic continuity, of the simple fact that she was here because others had been here, had maintained, had kept the boundary intact through the accumulation of their presence, their attention, their slow transformation from individual women into components of something larger, older, more patient than any single life could be. The root's opening contracted slightly, not closing, encouraging, urging. The way a heart urges blood to flow, the way a lung urges air to enter. It needed her. It needed her specifically, her particular combination of inherited traits and learned behaviors and conscious choice. The membrane was failing. Vera's departure had weakened it. The hollow ones were pressing through, not in invasion, but in curiosity, in hunger, in the simple biological drive to expand into available space. Elena made her decision. Your decision determines what happens next. Enter the root and become part of the membrane, or refuse and search for an exit. There is no correct path, only the one you choose. The house remembers, the hollow ones wait.